Hello and welcome to another fun and exciting point-of-sale related video. The purpose of this video is to provide an updated comparison between the Microsoft Dynamics Retail Management System, or RMS, point-of-sale software versus the Cloud Retailer point-of-sale software, as the Cloud Retailer software is positioned as a direct replacement for Microsoft RMS. However, there are some differences. And while this video was originally done in 2018, it is time for an update. So here's the 2020 edition. What we're going to do here is just start comparing and contrasting some of the common things we do in RMS and how they're done in Cloud Retailer. So we're going to start with the point of sale. And most of you probably know the three hot function keys in RMS. F7, F2, and F12. So let's go ahead and set a customer, and I'm just going to pick myself here. And notice in RMS, of course, we have to figure out how we're searching for someone, or we have to use that find button for a more advanced search. Same for looking up a product. We have to kind of tell it how we're looking, or use the find button. And I realize, you can scan barcodes on products, but I want to give a little more in-depth example on looking up some of these things. And then we can tender the sale. So pretty straightforward. And that's the most common thing that you are doing in Microsoft RMS when you're using the POS or the cash register part of RMS. So if we go over to Cloud Retailer, obviously the look and feel is different. But a lot of the things are still very easy to do. Now, I've already attached myself as a customer, but searching for a customer is a lot easier because we are just thinking of this as we're searching for something in a search engine like Google or Bing. We're just going to type in 3 characters and then we can do our search. And then it will bring up matches and then we can select the appropriate person. Same with looking up products. Now again, normally we use a barcode scanner, but for the sake of showing some of the differences, I wanted to use the search. So again, think of it like we're searching in Google. So we just type in 3 characters, we can do our search, and it brings up my favorite bottle of water, and we can add that to the sale. And then we can hit our subtotal, and we get our tender screen. So you can see running through a transaction is pretty darn easy in both programs. Not super complicated. Now, some of the differences. If you're used to seeing cost and adding new items at POS and RMS, you can't do that in Cloud Retailer. That's more of a security thing. But you're not going to see costs and you're not going to be adding products at the POS screen. That hasn't been a huge issue, but it has come up with about a dozen or so retailers that are used to that. So I'd just like to point that out ahead of time. Obviously, it's very easy to access the manager part of Cloud Retailer on a very limited basis if you're, for who can and can't do things within the manager part, which I'll show later on in the video. But just keep that in mind, one of the differences. The other difference is, of course, RMS, we had our little buttons across the bottom, and of course they changed when we did like the control key or the alt key or the control and the alt key or the shift and all sorts of combinations. Plus many of you had additional buttons down the right hand side or maybe even some additional things across the top. What Cloud Retailer has done is there are task pads all along the right-hand side here. Now don't worry too much about what these say or what color they are. This is all custom designed basically around what type of retail store you have. This one's clearly for a liquor store. However, you could see how these buttons could be set up for a gift shop, a hobby shop, a gun store, cannabis related, etc., etc. So that's very easy, how many buttons there are, how many layers there are, within the menu. That's another thing that can easily be created. So that's pretty much for it for the point of sale. Again, if we just keep in mind the point of sale part of the software is your cash register functions. If you think of it that way, it's an easy transition. All right. Now, let's take a look at store operations or RMS manager. Some of the more common things we're going to do. Probably one very common thing is we're going to look at our items. We might be adding an item. For the sake of making this go faster, I'm not going to actually add an item, but let's pick our bottled water and look at the properties. And, RMS, we've got our lovely tabs going across where we can see and set the different options. And again, this is all very familiar to you. So let's go over to Cloud Retailer and go to Products. And see if I've got my bottled water in there. Yay, there it is. Okay, so I wasn't sure if I'd added it to this this database or not, but it is in there. So the best way to describe this is RMS Manager, Products, we have tabs. Cloud Retailer, we have more of a long screen where everything's in these different sections. So let's take a look at some of the differences. So right away you'll notice we don't have an extended description like we do in Microsoft RMS. There's a place for notes, but there isn't that long description. What you will also notice is besides departments and categories, we pick up a subcategory, and we have the ability to tag with common attributes to different products. It's not a department, it's not a category or any of that, but it's a common thing like organic or from Europe, or aperture setting is 1:14:1. There's all these different things you can do. Like RMS, we have tag-along products, barcode printing, and alternate codes is the same as the alias function in RMS, where we've got the different lookup codes. Alright, moving on down, we've got our discounts. Now here's where things get a little different, but they also get a lot easier, especially if you are using RMS HQ. You notice our multi-location functions are all within the program. You're not pushing out worksheets or things like that. It's all set from here. So let's look at just Boise for the time being. So now I'm looking at inventory specific information for my Nestle bottle of water. This is not sponsored by Nestle, by the way. They're Pure Life or whoever's bottled water example I'm using. Just happen to have it handy. Alright, so like RMS, we have our retail price, of course our taxing, prices A, B, and C, and some options for entering some basic sale prices based on a date range. Of course our low and our high bound pricing, and our minimum and maximum quantity. And then a lot of this again is similar to RMS, our checkboxes that we're seeing here. Unit of measurement. Now we do have some specific attributes set up because this is a beer and wine or liquor store environment. We can have multiple suppliers or vendors like RMS offers. And then we do pick up some trending data that we can see about the product, which is a nice little snapshot. What you'll notice here that is missing, and have to be completely honest about this, there is no style size color matrix. So as far as apparel goes, if apparel is your main focus and you use the style size and color matrix within RMS, that is not in Cloud Retailer at this time. Again, just being honest on these differences. Okay, so that covers that side of things. Let's move on to another topic in RMS. And I would say probably the next logical one is reports. So let's do a, customer report. And we set our criteria, we add it, and we get nothing. Probably not enough data, so let me try a different report here that might give you we'll do a detailed sales report. And let me change that date range. See if we can get some data into this. And we'll change that. And I don't really care about the cashier. So we'll just do date sold, we hit OK, and we get our report. Alright, not the most detailed, but you get the idea if you've been using RMS what the reports look like. And we've got some drill down capabilities when our little magnifying glass appears. And we can also collapse the report if we want to see less or more detail. Now, if we hop over into Cloud Retailer and we go to reports, and let's do customer list with sales is always a good one because it shows the some sales data. So this is similar when we're doing our criteria and running a report, and we can add multiple criteria or filtering within the report here. But we can also change a lot more on the fly, meaning we can add things like if I want to see their zip code, we can add that. And then if I don't care about the company name, I can remove that. So a lot of things can be done on the fly in the Cloud Retailer reporting. The other thing that is also, actually two more things that are cool, with many of the reports, they can be created automatically and emailed. So that's handy if there's some daily, weekly, monthly reports that you need. They can be done for you and just emailed to you. You know, it saves 5 or 10 minutes not having to run the report if it can just be sent to you. Then the other thing is very easy to export it to Excel, make it into a PDF, print it, and then here's for our doing our configurations on the report. All right. So I would definitely say the reporting is a lot easier in Cloud Retailer, but at the same point, it's also easy to transition from RMS because you're used to doing this whole grade level greater than, equal than, less to, etc., etc. You know, our math that we learned in elementary school. All right, one other thing is with Cloud Retailer, there is the ability to generate custom reports. Realize there's quite a few reports listed. However, if you're used to something or if there's something that you want, you can have a Cloud Retailer technician create the report for you, or there is a tool that you can be trained on to create your own custom reports. That's a little different. With RMS, a lot of times we are asked or paid to create custom reports, where here we can still create them, or we can train you on how to create them. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. I'm saying all right. Next up, let's go to purchasing. That's another common thing. So in RMS, the general process for most folks is we are going to create a new purchase order, maybe blank, maybe for items in a specific group, department category, date range, things like that. So a lot of folks are using these to reorder information. So let's go ahead and create for all items. and we're going to get nothing because nothing was sold. But that's okay. Again, you're used to RMS, so that's not critical that we show that level of detail in RMS, but we do want to show it in Cloud Retailer. So Cloud Retailer, we have to think of this as a two-step process. So supplier purchase planning, think of that as that first screen in RMS where we're selecting, okay, we want to create based on XYZ. So maybe we're going to do some filtering based on the category name, department name, things like that. Maybe we'll narrow it down by locations, by suppliers. Again, it's kind of like that first screen. My favorite way to do this, and it seems like this works with 90% of the retailers out there, is we're going to create our quantity to orders based on reorder points or past sales. Now, most of you are used to reorder points. You know, when I get down to 4 bottles of water, order 24. But let's do it on past sales because this is kind of cool. So we calculate based on past sales, and I'm going to make a large date range here. Make sure we have something that we'll actually be needing to order. And so it's going to look through the system, and we're going to save it. And then we're going to go back to Tools, and here's our second step. And that is to look at our purchase orders. So what it did is, let's see, it's the 9th today, so based on what has been sold, it created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 purchase orders. So I like that. You know, minimum quantity on hand is also a cool way for things that are fairly consistent, but recent sales is another way of looking at it and doing it. And then let's take a look at a purchase order here just to show you. One thing I always stress with folks is there's always human override. So if I know that the reason I had a bunch of Bug Light keg sales was because graduation at the local college just took place, and I know I won't need 4 more, then I can change it to 1 or 0 or whatever I know I need. So again, we've got the human override. One cool thing is you can email the purchase orders. Very few folks these days still want a fax purchase order. It still happens, but most suppliers or vendors look for things to be emailed or inputted directly. So that is cool about emailing. You know, in RMS you could still email it, but you had to do that all manually. Alright, I'm going to close a couple of these things out. And let's see, what else? I think we're done with the point of sale. Well, actually, this might be a good point before I cover just some of the minor other setup or setting differences between the two programs. The name Cloud Retailer implies it's a cloud or an internet-based program. Well, that's partially true, partially not true. The POS, or what we're looking at here, what I'll call the cash register part of Cloud Retailer, is a Windows-based program. So I'm actually running this on a tablet that runs Windows 10. So the idea here is we've got a basic database with our products right here on this computer. So we get the speed of service. That also gives us a little redundancy should the internet go down. Now you still have to think about other things like how do I process credit cards, what about the loyalty program if I'm using it, things like that. But if you lose the internet, what happens is this last sync message turns red, but you still have the ability to run transactions, keeping in mind you'll have to have some sort of way to process credit cards, either by having, backup internet, or maybe you have a phone with one of those little square credit card readers on it, or something. Okay, so that's the non-cloud part of Cloud Retailer. The cloud part is this back office or manager part. So this is pure browser based, so any device with a browser and the ability to access the internet. Means you don't have to be at the store to take care of your purchasing and your reports and maintenance and things like that. So it is definitely a great compromise between being Windows-based and cloud-based. You just have to kind of keep some of those things in mind as far as, if the internet goes down, you can still run sales, but there's some limitations, especially on the credit card processing side of things. All right. Let's take a look at a couple of last things here. And so RMS Manager, going back to that, of course, to clarify, Microsoft RMS Manager, POS, and Admin are all Windows-based programs. None of this is cloud-based, with the exception of at one time, it might be, if you have any plugins or add-ons, it might be looking out to the internet for stuff like that. Okay, so we've covered purchasing, receiving, we've looked at reports, we've looked at inventory. Let's just look at a couple of the setup things. RMS was pretty lenient on letting folks just kind of type in your business name and how you want it to appear on the receipt and stuff like that. Now that is not something that you can do in Cloud Retailer. That's part of the licensing. Okay, layaways, back orders, inventory. Okay, now this has changed. With RMS we had last cost or weighted cost. Cloud Retailer is first in, first out. And then another thing to highlight, we've got a lot of different checkboxes in RMS. I think, especially with items, we saw a lot of this in the this setup when we were looking at that bottle of water as an inventory item. Okay, now for Cloud Retailer, for our configurations, I think the biggest thing that is good to look at, and that is employee roles. Because RMS had different ways of doing security settings. There were checkboxes, there was a security level, things like that. So Cloud Retailer has gone with what I think is more common in the industry these days, and that is using role-based security. So if we look at, and you can have more than 3 roles here. I want to stress this is just an example. We could add in, trainee or shift supervisor, assistant manager, stuff like that. And we'll just pick one and we'll edit it so you can see the different options here. The idea is you are creating permissions on what someone can and can't do based on their role. The thing I like about that is when you're onboarding someone, you just assign them a role. If you make a change to that particular role, you're just changing it in here. You're not changing it potentially in every different employee that you have. Now, of course, if you only have 2 employees, not a big deal, but we have folks, with several hundred employees, and that can be a big deal if you have to go in and change it. All right, let's see here. We've covered a lot of this stuff. I think I'm going to wrap it up with just one more quick overview, and that's going to be on some of the sales and promotions type stuff. So RMS had a lot of options for doing things. We had mix and matching. We also had the option, if we look at an inventory item, we could do some different discounting here. We had our pricing, which you kind of saw. RMS is kind of all across the board. There's like, you could go here to do this, you could go there to do that type of discount. You could create a coupon as a negative item. It was somewhat interesting to try to train someone to find all the different ways to do discounting. Now, Cloud Retailer does a great job of combining that primarily into one location. I know when we were looking at a product, actually I'll go back to it here rather than just saying, do you remember? So when we were looking at that bottle of water, we did have the option right here to set a basic sale price and a start and end date. Well, that's not the only place we can do our sales and our promotions in Cloud Retailer. So the other option is we can do some custom discounting. And this may look kind of complex at first, but it's actually really not, because what we're doing is it will prompt us to fill in as we go. So the first thing, we might want to add a filter saying category equals, beer. We'll just use that for an example. And then we can name our discount. And give it a description. We can do our start and end date. And then it starts getting more advanced, which I think is cool because it's not complex to do this, and it gives you more options. So we can have different days of the week when this promotion applies. We can have start and end times. Like maybe we just want to do happy hour pricing. Or maybe, depending on the product you sell, maybe there's certain times of the day you want to offer a discount. Really, really cool. And then we have our different settings for, what the price or the discount is going to be based off of. So let's do cost plus percent, because that's an easy one. And we can just type in, cost, it's going to be plus 10%. We can require how many quantities. Is that quantity based on units or size? Do they have to get identical items? Can we do discounting on related items? Can we double dip? If they already have one sort of promotion or coupon taking place, can they apply both to a single product? That's a good one to override. What I run into a lot is people who maybe have mailers out there that give like a 10% off to new people who've moved into the zip code, new residents, the new resident discount. But then maybe you're also running a spring promotion. Do you want them to get 10% off because they're a new resident near the store, someone that moved into the area, plus another 10% off because it's spring promotion time? Or do you want to make it just one or the other? So very cool. I really like this. I've really had some great feedback from folks using Cloud Retailer, how much easier this is than what RMS had. Okay, I promised that was going to be the last thing. I realized I could go on and on about the differences, but I think we've kind of hit the highlights here. My best recommendation, again, would be if there's something really specific that you're used to in RMS, ask the contact in the video description or whoever you're working with to make sure that you go into a little more detail about how that's done in Cloud Retailer. Odds are it can be done. It might be done a different way. It might be done a better way. So you might want to go into it with an open mind. If it can't be done, then we'd rather find that out now than before you've invested any more time into looking at Cloud Retailer. And it may be something that's not important anyway. So I thank you for watching. And again, the contact information will be in the video description if you have any more questions. Thanks for watching.